Hey guys, I came on here a little early just so that you guys that are ready can be a part of the conversation early on. Awesome. I'm just getting all systems set up here for us to chat. Hey everyone. Okay, cool. I'm just going to give it a few, like 1 minute, for you guys to come in here and say what's up. And in the meantime, just give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me clearly. Just let me know that you're here. Shout out the city that you're in, that you're watching from. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for a few people to come in, right next to the comment section, there's an arrow, and you can actually send this to a friend. So if there's a restaurant worker that you feel should be a part of this conversation and has questions, definitely encourage them to watch and use that arrow button so that they can watch as well. And it'll send it directly to their DMs and they can tune in immediately. Okay, I see Portland is here. Los Angeles is in the house. Hey. All right, cool. And then at the bottom here is a little live fundraiser. So if you guys feel so inclined to donate to RWCF today, you can do so. And thank you guys for tuning in. All right, it's been a minute. I think we're gonna get started. All right, cool. So, hey everyone, my name is Cassandra Rosario. I'm going to be your moderator this afternoon. I'm also the communications consultant for the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation, so hopefully you guys will be seeing more of me soon. Restaurant Workers Community Foundation is an advocacy and action nonprofit that is created by restaurant workers for restaurant workers. And our RWCF Talks is a weekly initiative that we're going to be hosting so that restaurant workers get access to the information that they need as well as the funding. And it's also going to serve as a space for thought leaders and subject matter experts to speak about the fine print. You know, there's a lot of information out there that is vague sometimes, and this is going to help. Well, we're hoping that this helps restaurant workers navigate it a little better, you know, have a space to directly ask the questions that you have that may not be in the print that you see online when you're, you know, filling out applications or getting access to different resources. So I'm really excited. Hopefully after this conversation is over, you guys click the link in our bio. It's going to have where you can apply for funding through Southern Smoke. You can also find out where to nominate a nonprofit, a potential nonprofit partner that could get funding from our fund, and you can sign up for our newsletter. So that's a great way to learn about the future conversations that we're going to have, as well as just stay tuned on everything that the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation is doing. So today we're going to have Catherine Lott on. She's the executive director at Southern Smoke, and she's coming with nearly 20 years of experience of nonprofit administration, and she's incredibly talented and awesome, and I can't wait to have her on. And for those of you that are new, Southern Smoke is our partner. 50% of the funds for our COVID National Emergency Relief Fund goes directly to restaurant workers. So I think we're nearly close to $6 million raised. So shout out to everybody that has been donating and that has been a part of this effort. We really appreciate you, and you're helping restaurant workers nationwide. As I mentioned, 50% of the funds go directly to Southern Smoke, and that goes to direct financial assistance for restaurant workers. And Catherine today is going to be answering a few questions that have been submitted, as well as we're just going to have a nice little fun chat about what Southern Smoke is doing and how we're working with them. I'm going to call her in a few minutes, well, in a few seconds actually. So if you guys have any questions, right next to the comment box, there is a square box with a question mark on it. Please submit your questions that way. Just in case we miss it in the chat, you can just click that button and submit any questions, and it'll come up right on the screen, and I'll do my best to get everyone's questions up. And if I don't get around to your question, it could be that we're going to be asking it already, but I'm going to do my best. We have an hour. So I'm going to call her in now, and then in the meantime, you guys just send this to a restaurant worker that you love, that you know deserves to get funding, so that they can tune in and watch, and definitely submit a question at the bottom so that, you know, we can get those questions answered. So give me a second to just call them in, and I will be with you guys shortly. And if you haven't told me yet which city that you're watching from, definitely put it in the comment section below. Hey everyone that's just joining us. All right, I'm calling in now. So let's see. Okay, I see Seattle is in here. Thank you guys for all the support. Los Angeles is in here. Hey. If you guys have any questions, just put it right next to the comment box. There's a question mark box. Hey, San Francisco, I see you guys in the house. Oakland, okay. Just put your questions in the box there with a question mark so that we can answer them while we're having the conversation. I'm just giving it a second to call Southern Smoke into our chat. Doo, doo, doo. All right, let me try that again. All right, we should be connecting with Catherine shortly. Are you guys feeling good today? How's your spirit? My vibe today is like very up. I'm here for this conversation. Hey, Olipop. Dripping Springs, I see you. In the meantime, you guys send this conversation to a restaurant worker that you know so that they can be a part of the conversation. I'm giving you Blue's Clues vibes. That's hilarious. Hey, Jameson. All right. I'm just trying to go live with them, and I should be getting them in now. Let's see. Let's see what the Wi-Fi is doing. Thank you guys for being so patient. Hey, I love seeing the familiar faces in here. All right, I'm just trying to add Southern Smoke, guys, so just give us a second. There we go.
Sorry, I'm so new at this. This is my first Instagram live. I've only even posted on Instagram once.
It's all good.
It's not my thing.
Okay, you can see me okay?
Yeah, can you see me okay?
Yes, and I hear you great. How are you today?
Good, good. Really excited to be talking to you guys.
I know, so am I. We have so many things to talk about, but we did have some questions submitted as well. And I just want to reiterate again, for anybody that has questions as we continue the conversation, right next to the comment box is a question mark box, and you can submit any questions on there. Thank you, whoever just donated that $20. Thank you so much. So you guys can submit questions there, which I will, what's the right word? I will include them in the chat here. All right, cool. So I guess I want to start talking about kind of the inception of this, right? Because when we first started our COVID National Emergency Relief Fund, we were in talks with Southern Smoke very early on. Do you remember like what those conversations, what they were like? And then how has our organizational relationship grown over the past 2 months? If you could share that.
Wow. So yes, we had a mutual advocate put us in touch. And John and I first talked about, really the conversation started with, you know, how do we create a relief fund that looks like Southern Smoke? And since you guys do this already on a year-round basis, can you lend us some pointers? And so, of course, as we dove into this conversation, I was happy to lend a helping hand, but I was also really fearful that with pop-up crisis relief funds, and I don't mean that you guys haven't been around for as long as we have. I'm just saying that this actual process of going through the crisis relief funding, you have to have so much vetting and such a complete operation and committee after committee and all of these things that go into this process. And it became very clear to me that you guys are really good at raising money and that we were really good at what we did. And so we decided to marry the efforts and partner together. And we would stay specialized in what we did, and you guys were staying specialized in what you did. And together, it's been one of the most beautiful marriages of any partnership I've ever been a part of. And I mean that sincerely. You've donated millions to help all of us save and change lives. And obviously, nobody saw a pandemic coming, but I really hope that this is something that we can continue to partner on going forward, because I don't see this ending anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, just to piggyback off what you said, you guys have been amazing partners. So thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. And, raising all of this money could not be possible with everyone out there that has been contributing, that has been doing a portion of the proceeds or doing walks, virtual events to make this possible. So I just want to thank everybody for that. But I want to touch on what you said about just the vetting process and what does that take? What have you found are the challenges of trying to do national relief, right, for over 10 million restaurant workers? What are some of the challenges that you guys have faced on your end?
Yeah, that was one of the things that we had working actually on our side from the very beginning, because we already had our mission and our processes established as far as how we already handle applications that come in to our desk. Even though we went from 2 to 40 employees in order to do this, we've certainly grown in size, but we already had the mechanisms. So our philosophy and our mission dictate that we address each crisis or each application based on its level of urgency. So that hasn't changed, even with this pandemic at hand, even with COVID. That process is still the same. So the moment that an application comes into our office or our portal, then immediately a screener will determine the level of urgency this case is. So if it's life and death, it gets screened red. If it's a vulnerable population member or number of members experiencing or on the brink of homelessness, that's an orange, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go down the list from there. So then that case is passed off accordingly. What that allows us to do is, if we have somebody in a life and death situation, we can literally turn their case around in 24 hours and make sure that we get them the help that we need right then and there. Right. Unfortunately, what that means too is that it leaves people sometimes that have applied before others still waiting patiently. Right. Thank goodness. Everybody's been really lovely about understanding this process who has applied, and we're so thankful for that. But we know that it's hard, and people, there's a lot of, every day there's more people on the brink of homelessness, unfortunately, and that's just part of what this whole crisis has brought to hand. But then once they are assigned to a caseworker, then that caseworker becomes their advocate, right? So you sort of have to see them as a social worker who's then going to put their case up to a blind committee, because everything that we do is totally based on anonymity. So your caseworker really is the only one that knows your identity. And they work with you to build your case and to make sure that A, you have been employed in the food and restaurant industry for a minimum of 6 months, and B, and these are our only 2 requirements, we have pretty liberal guidelines, but they're non-negotiable. The second one is you had to have worked a minimum of 30 hours per week prior to the pandemic. So and that can be multiple jobs. That doesn't just have to be from one job. So if you picked up shifts somewhere else, or you got a catering gig on the side, or whatever it is, but then we do vet that employment pretty hard. And we make sure that we check paycheck stubs and W-2s, but we'll work with you in any way that we can. I mean, we can get creative, but we do have to have that physical evidence that you have met those 2 requirements. And then we find out more, we build your case, and we put you up for vote as soon as we possibly can, after redacting your entire application and removing any of your personal identifying traits.
Awesome. I have a very specific question about the information as well that was submitted, but just for those that are tuning in, can you just break down the color system one more time, just so that they understand? We have been getting a lot of questions about, I've applied, where's my application currently? So just want to break down those colors real quick to them so that they understand, the way that the applications are processed through you guys.
Sure, absolutely. So we have a code red, right, which is our life and death. Life and death can mean any number of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone has a gunshot wound and is bleeding out, right? I'll give you a couple of for instances. One is we very early on had a gentleman who is living with HIV and was desperate to get his medication. His medication is very, very expensive. He had been furloughed, but he had all.
Oh, we lost her, but that's okay. We're going to get her back in a second. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, please just use the question box right next to the comment section so that you can submit any questions that you might have. And I'm going to add Catherine back right now so that we can continue to talk about what that breakdown looks like.
I don't know what happened.
It's okay. It's
sorry. Okay. So sorry, we were talking about, so he had all of the symptoms of somebody that had COVID, and yet he was so desperate to get his medication, he was going to go and get a job anyway in a grocery store, which means that he could have passed that on to other people. And we took that as life and death. Essential medications. We've also had a situation where somebody was 8 months pregnant, and because she was late on a bill, her OBGYN would not see her until that bill was paid, and she hadn't had fetal movement in 3 days. And so we knew that we had to get her in that day. In those cases, we turn them around in 24 hours and we get them the help that they need. And that's really important to us. So I just wanted to illustrate that life and death can mean any number of things. Then from there, when we talk about vulnerable populations that are either on the brink of homelessness or experiencing homelessness, what we mean are any of the following categories. We mean children under the age of 18.
And this is the orange.
This is orange.
Okay.
Children under the age of 18, elderly, transgender, people with COVID, or people that are undiagnosed but have the symptoms of COVID. Okay. Those are our 5 categories there. From there, we then go into a numbering system, right? So, and it's internal stuff, but we then go into a numbering system where we go 6 down. And so obviously the next category would be people that are on the brink of homelessness, but experiencing homelessness that fall into the rest of the general population. From there, we get into cars being repossessed. From there, we get into electricity bills, et cetera. However, if your utilities, and this is where it starts getting a little bit more complicated and sophisticated, if your utilities are attached to, for instance, an oxygen machine that keeps you alive, obviously utilities fall under life and death. Right. And if your kids need the internet in order to continue their education, obviously that falls under a much greater need. So we assess each case on a case-by-case basis, but those are our general guidelines, just so that you know how we break it down.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And for those of you guys that are just tuning in, we're talking with Catherine. She's the executive director at Southern Smoke. My name is Cassandra. I'm the communications consultant here at the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation. You guys, if you can afford to donate, please do so at the bottom of this chat. And if you have any questions, please put them right next to the comment section. There's a box there. You can ask any questions while we have this conversation and use the arrow to send this to a restaurant worker that you love, that you know deserves to have funding so that they can get the information that they need. So I have a few submitted questions that kind of specify around, the process that you guys have at Southern Smoke. And someone asks about aid being individuals, or can households also apply?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me, you can be a member of a household and apply for whatever. It's really based on what your crisis is, right? So if you're a dad and your children cannot eat, or if you're a mom and you're having to sleep in the car with your kiddos then obviously you're applying for something that belongs to your crisis and your situation.
Right.
So absolutely, yeah.
And then you also spoke about how the caseworker is the only person that knows the identity.
Mm-hmm.
Someone also asks about, just the sensitive information that is required in the application, and where does that information go, and how is the information being kept safe?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have a portal, right? That is obviously password secured, et cetera, that is built for high security. And then we redact all of the information once it's been vetted and evaluated. And what that simply means, just so that we're clear, it's not even that sophisticated. It just means that in a PDF editor, we go through and we black out your name and your birth date and all of those things that could possibly identify you, so that we could unfairly award you or not award you. And so that's what we're really looking for. What we do have to still have evidence there, though, just so you know what the committee does see, is we do see all of your financial information. That's really important. We need to know how many kids you have in that house. We need to know what the expenses are for your life, and what sort of income you have coming in, if any. There's nothing there outside of that personal information that I just referenced that anyone could hurt you with, if that makes sense. It's really we're looking at dollars and cents by the time it gets to us. And then it's really important that the caseworker has a strong statement of need, is what we call it. And that's your personal part of the story. And that's something you work with your case builder to establish.
Now, I have another question about just unique living situations and just verifying, because some people are subletting, some people have temporary housing. So how do you guys assess those applications?
Case by case. And that's true. So we've learned so much going through this. So we have found that a lot of people have found refuge in long-term, long-stay hotels. And that seemed to work really nicely for them, even sometimes more so than if we offer to get you into a permanent setting, into a permanent apartment, and even put your deposit down on your behalf. Sometimes, because the bills are prepaid and it's furnished and it's safe and all of those things, that's the better route to go. I will say, though, that in places like New York City, they have found out how valuable they are during this pandemic. And we have seen so much exploitation in certain cities of that system that we are keenly aware of other routes to go when it comes to placing those clients or applicants. So it's again, it's case by case, and a lot of it's regional. And a lot of it too, when you're talking about spaces to live, you're also talking about climate. You're talking about a lot of different things. And of course, if you're in an unsafe space, our job is to get you out as safely and as quickly as possible.
And you mentioned New York, and you mentioned a lot of those things being regional. I want to reiterate to the restaurant workers that are watching that, these funds are not nationwide. I think that sometimes, because it's Southern Smoke and Southern Smoke, Texas, there's this misconception that, the funding is only for people in that area. And it's a nationwide effort. So I just want to reiterate that to anyone that's watching, to please go ahead and apply, because the funding is for you if you have a need, as she mentioned earlier. So you talked about staff and how, just with our relationship, your staff has grown from 3 to 20, 3 to 40. So I want to talk about, I know a lot of those workers were previously restaurant workers, and how does that inform your process at Southern Smoke?
Yeah. So it was always really, our founder is Chef Chris Shepard. And it was always really important to him that anybody that was going to come on staff, even prior to the pandemic, had experience within the food and beverage industry. It is incredibly imperative that we speak some sort of language that that we can identify with those people that are on the other end of the phone or on the other end of that email account. And so when all of this transpired, we had just hired, literally just hired 1 month prior, our full-time caseworker, and prior to that it was just me. And
Oh, wow.
so so we then decided, when we were faced with this boom, if you will, of need, that we needed to dig deep and stay mission focused and serve in every way that we could through this pandemic. And we were going to give people who had been furloughed or unemployed the opportunity to come and work with us for a fair wage across the board. Everybody gets paid $15 an hour, which I know isn't a ton of money, but it's what we worked with you guys actually to establish what that rate was going to be. And then we have trained each and every one of those people to become either a caseworker or a screener or a communications person or a redactor or whatever the case may be. So it's been really exciting, and how it informs us. They have turned out to be the most incredible people for this job because they're already used to high stress situations and knowing how to pivot and turn, and they're nimble and they're not rigid. And that's what really helps us not only relate. The peer-to-peer is a given, right? So we know that that's where we have huge value. But watching them work under this amount of pressure and keep their cool and keep their calm is one of the most magnificent sights and most humbling things I've ever been a part of. It's been really just, it's amazing. And they've all really bonded together and they feel like family, and they, a lot of them are just like everybody else at home alone, and they feel like they're getting up and going to work every day, and they feel like they're really helping people and creating miracles. And I think that it will be, again, just life-changing for all of us. I keep saying there will always be this Southern Smoke family. So for us internally, it's just been awesome.
Yeah, and I think it reiterates kind of the Southern Smoke mantra as well, of like taking care of your own, and that, just bringing back that peer-to-peer piece. So I have another question about income and the application, because you have restaurant workers of all incomes, right? So how does a high income potentially decrease the chance of or probability of receiving support? There are a lot of people that, had high incomes prior to COVID and have now been furloughed, and they're now experiencing a crisis. So how does that affect when you guys are looking at the applications, if at all?
So one is, what is their income right now post COVID, right? If any. And two, we always go back to, what is the crisis? That's what we constantly go back to as caseworkers is if you lose that car, does that keep you from getting your elderly mother to and from her doctor's office? Or did you just get a brand new Mercedes and you just really want to hold on to it because it's your new toy, right? So again, looking at each one of these cases individually and really investing in each and every one of them, which is, again, why it takes a little bit of time for some of you to hear back from us. We're sorry. We're trying, I promise. But if in fact that high income person then, for instance, is a restaurant owner, or that high income person is taking care of a whole family, or whatever the case may be, and they don't have that income coming in anymore, and they need that large house because they're housing multiple people, etc. We see it from all angles. And the other part of that too is, we're never going to discriminate against somebody that comes from a high cost of living area versus another area. So I had sticker shock on one that came through the other day, and I just thought, my God, that can't be real. And turns out that this person actually is a grower of grapes in Napa, and that's obviously an incredibly important job to this industry. And so and it made sense. And if I have sticker shock, usually it's a New York City or San Francisco person. And we've learned to ebb and flow. We've also learned, what that median income in each region really looks like to us in this industry. And so it's been a learning curve, but it's been certainly something that we address, and we never discriminate against people that have high income. I will say though that if we feel that somebody is ever abusing the system, we won't allow that either. If they just have 7 cars for one person and they have assets to put up versus somebody else who literally has nothing and has moved in with their mom and dad, and they've done all of the right things, and they've maxed out their credit cards, and they've just gone to the mat trying to take care of themselves. We respect that, and we see that balance, and we're very, very in touch with what that means. So I don't mean to say that everybody just gets to live the lifestyle that they're accustomed to right now. That's certainly not the case. But again, it goes back to the crisis at hand.
Can you speak to the application as far as like applying at a later date? What does that look like? Is it very one and done, or if they're experiencing a crisis later on, how does that work?
Yeah, so we have to hold strong to our guidelines, and we grant once every 12 months. And so it certainly doesn't mean that you can't come back again. We see folks that we helped during Harvey coming back, and we're so glad that they know and trust us, and that they know that we'll be there for them. We have folks that we've helped during other natural disasters coming back to Southern Smoke and applying now. So we welcome those people to come back and apply every 12 months. We will also tell you, if you are working with a caseworker and they know that you're about to lose your health insurance, for instance, or they know that you're about to, or that you're waiting to see if you think that you're going to get this new apartment or something. I'm not giving good examples, but if they know that something bigger is coming down the road for you, they will actually advise you to hold. Just hold up a moment, because you get one shot at this every 12 months. So they're very sensitive to that, and they're well trained to make sure to know when to give that advice.
Yeah, that's great. And I think there's also this misconception that people feel like they have to go through this alone. And I think, having that caseworker there just reiterates that you're not doing this alone. There is a team, there is a community, there is a network of people that want to see you come out of this. So just want to reiterate that to those of you that are watching. And if you have any questions, please use the comment box. Use right next to the comment box the question box, so that we can submit those here. I think we had a question already. Someone asked if, I'm not able to put it on the screen because we have the live fundraiser, so I'll read it. Someone asked if this will be available for review after the live broadcast. Yes, it will. It will go up immediately after this conversation. And someone also asked if there's going to be a doc with any resources or any of the advice mentioned. So we do have a ton of resources on our website, restaurantworkerscf.org. And Southern Smoke also shares a ton of, I don't know if you want to speak to that as well. I know you guys have mental health resources that you just released. But we share a ton of.
I just saw the question pop up too in the comment section. So
look at that.
I'd love to. Yeah.
So yeah, we share a ton of resources on our site. Southern Smoke does as well. I mean, we also have FAQs, frequently asked questions, both on our highlight on Instagram as well as on our website, that really address some of these questions that we're talking about now with Southern Smoke. But please, Catherine, please share some of those resources that you guys have as well.
Yeah, so we have a really, really cool announcement that we just literally put out yesterday. I see the mental health question mark there, and I'm so glad that you guys are asking this. We've actually worked for years to get a program launced. Thank God we finally did. It's not anywhere near done. It's just launched, right? So we are finally able to give free mental health care to people in the food and beverage industry. They have to live in Texas right now. We created a partnership with Mental Health America and the University of Houston. So it's PhD clinical psychology students that will be giving this mental health care, but also they'll be supervised by the head of the department. So it's a win-win for everybody all the way around, bilingual, accessible, etc. So we are on track to be able to offer this. Hopefully, our goal is obviously to offer this to everybody across the nation, and specifically for food and beverage industry workers. And we have worked with them to customize some of that approach with them. And we're ecstatic. The other part of that is that we're not only offering it to people who work in the food and beverage industry, but we're also offering it to their children.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Congratulations to you guys getting that off the ground.
Thank you. And it actually started when we had Southern Smoke Fall a number of years ago after Bourdain passed. And so it's something that all the chefs that were participating that year came together in a roundtable discussion, a closed door roundtable discussion. And we talked about it, and we all came up with what we thought was the best plan that we could think of in order to prevent any other scenarios like that, and also to pay homage to the ones that we've lost in the past. So just a commitment to doing better.
Man, rest in peace, Anthony Bourdain. I miss him so.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be doing a conversation soon about mental health. And Michael's in the comments now talking about our grantee, Ben's Friends as well, and Restaurant After Hours, who also offer mental health resources specifically for restaurant workers. So
awesome.
Definitely check them out. We'll be sharing more information about them. You can find it on our page, and you can also find it on our website. If you guys have any last questions, add them to the conversation so that we can address them. But I want to talk about how kind of long-term plans, right? They're saying that it may be 3 years now before the economy is kind of back to what it was pre-COVID. So how do you see like the future of the Emergency Relief Fund, you know, just in the context of the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation and the struggles that restaurant workers face, and just the hospitality in general, and how we're all trying to fight for this equitable space. So how do you see the Relief Fund long-term in that context?
Well, one, I will tell you, we're going to stay mission-based. And for us, that is crisis relief funding. And I think that it's really imperative that we keep our focus honed. Again, what we do versus what everybody else does.
Right.
And so we will continue to partner with the Restaurant Community Foundation, Restaurant Workers Community Foundation, and as many people who are willing to fund us directly too, in order to be able to stay operational, right? And so payroll right now is so much greater than what we budgeted for at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
So operationally too, we're gearing up and making sure that those resources, and that we stay healthy fiscally and otherwise. Two, I think that staying on task with this mental health platform is really essential. I don't know that we will be creating any more active initiatives until we have this baby is born and off the ground. And I think that that's important too. I would love to say, you know, because we did at one point in time, we were going after veterans affairs, and we were going after this and that and everything, and we were juggling all over the place. And I lost my focus. I'll just be honest about that. I lost my focus a little bit and ran myself a little ragged. And I think that part of taking care of others is taking care of yourself. Absolutely. And we had to learn that a little bit with some bumps and bruises along the way, admittedly. And so we're sticking to our lane. We're growing where it makes sense for us to grow, and we grow where we feel that there's a void in that marketplace. And so I'm so glad that Michael shared that there are other resources out there for free mental health care for people in the food and beverage industry. That makes me so excited. But we are planning to make sure that everybody has access to that across the country.
I have a few more questions before I let you go. Someone asks, are there any volunteer opportunities at Southern Smoke, and how can others help in a non-fiscal manner?
So the long and short of that is, if you work in the food and beverage industry, no. if you need employment, reach out to us. Right now, we have as many people as we can take in, and they're doing an amazing job. But as their restaurants open up and they go away, we're still working really, really hard. And so we'd love to put your name on a list of some sort. Awesome. It's chris@southernsmoke.org, who would be the person you would email about that opportunity. It is totally against our mission right now to allow anybody in the food and beverage industry to work for free. And I get that everybody wants to do something that is vital and important, but this sort of work is just a little bit too involved, and I just don't feel like we could ethically bring somebody on to do this level of work and work as hard as these people are working and not compensate them fairly.
Right.
So
there was another question about the maximum amount of relief distributed to each of the applicants.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is no maximum. We have granted up to $100,000 to one applicant in a life-saving situation before, and we actually granted that within less than 24 hours to make sure that that person's life was saved. So again, we are completely case by case. If I had to tell you a life and death or non-life and death situation where we usually max out, it would be around $10,000.
Okay.
So we are not one of those foundations, proudly, we are not one of those foundations that puts a small cap on the amount that we are able to give. We distribute in accordance to the crisis at hand, and we believe in getting you out of your crisis. That's the game.
Cool. Well, Catherine, I want to thank you and thank Southern Smoke for all the work that you guys are doing. As I mentioned earlier, you guys have been an incredible partner. And I just want to thank you for your
guys
time
too.
and coming on here today and talking to everyone and answering the questions that have been posed. So thank you.
This was so much more fun than I thought. I was so nervous.
Oh, you were great.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Thank you again.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Okay, guys. So just want to thank you guys for paying attention to this conversation. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing RWCF Talks weekly. We're going to be sharing that on our website under the event section. You guys will be able to go on there soon and see the other conversations that we're going to be having. If you want to be the first to get an update, definitely go to restaurantworkerscf.org and sign up for our newsletter. The link is also in our bio, and the links are in our bio to apply for funding through Southern Smoke. So if you know a restaurant worker that deserves funding right now, that is experiencing, this crisis, please encourage them to apply. We've gotten to break down some of these questions today, but it will be saved afterwards so that you guys can send this to anyone that you need, that needs their questions answered. So just want to thank you guys again. Thank you guys for donating to RWCF. Thank you for supporting us, and we will see you next week. Okay, bye.